right, welcome back to episode 8 of the Relationship Comeback. As I told you guys, we're just getting bigger and better every single episode. This is a very, I almost want to call it a fancy episode because we have a professor on today. This is Professor Lieber. Professor Lieber, tell our millions of fans, tell them what's up.
Hi, everyone. I think this is the different podcast that I signed up for.
It's a different, yeah. Well, I am just speaking into existence. So we have millions of fans. In reality, we have like 50 fans. So, but one day we'll have millions of fans. But I appreciate you taking time to come on today and be able to share some of your wisdom. Professor Lieber, I've taken 2 classes from her at Utah Tech, all family studies classes, and so I've just appreciated her perspective and effort that she's given as a professor. And I reached out a couple months ago to see if she'd be willing to kind of come on and share her professional opinion. Because again, a lot of people that have come on to the podcast have been kind of similar age or situation as me, and I want to continue to also bring on people that have like a real professional background into this. So can you give us a little bit of an introduction into you and maybe how you've kind of got drawn into this family studies, human development area of expertise?
Well, thanks for having me on. It's kind of funny. I feel like I have a little bit of like imposter syndrome. I'm like, I'm a professor. I kind of forget that this was my first year teaching a couple classes at Utah Tech, and it was really cool. I uh, I love learning. I love research, and I love the family. I think it was that I knew I kind of maybe wanted to be a counselor or something like that when I started my degree in family studies at BYU. And I just loved analyzing my own family. Like the first time I heard triangulation, I was like, oh my gosh, like that describes my relationship with my mom, how she would draw me in. And I'm just going to explain
Mhm.
triangulation is just this like one family member draws someone in and then it um, alienates another family member. She would complain about my dad to me. And so we had this like alliance against my dad from like a very, very young age. And so I was able to finally be like, that's why I have a weird relationship with my dad when I really like my dad actually, and he's been nice to me. So I don't need to have these feelings. And so it was just this like aha moment of being able to explain myself in so many ways that I just was so drawn to. I was like, I want more information, more information. So just taking lots of classes and then went on to get my master's degree. I always wanted to get my master's, maybe my PhD someday. So just like loving to learn, loving to understand the family dynamics. I have 2 daughters now, and so loving to like understand what does the research actually say about, screen time, and what does it actually say about the cry it out method or different things like that that so many people right now have opinions, and it's almost like the better marketed opinions have a better chance than the actual true
Mhm.
facts of like research. What's in the Journal of Family Studies or like different things like that. So I like knowing that there's a source and research to back it up. And so that's my story. I just love learning. And so teaching has been fun because it also gives me access to um, school libraries and
Mhm.
different things like that where I can keep being up to date with research. And so long-winded, that's
Yeah.
who I am, just ever
Well,
curious.
I think that I'm pretty similar in that like I went into school doing a business degree and I took a communication class and then I took a family studies class and again there may be a little bit sometimes easier academic classes in the sense of there's maybe not a whole lot of
Totally.
memorizing, and so obviously I was drawn to that, but I also saw how impactful it was in my life. And like you're saying, like communication classes or family studies classes, it was just like opening up things in my mind that I was like, I can see real application into my day-to-day life versus a business degree is kind of big picture things. I didn't feel like it mattered a whole lot. I was like, I don't know if I really need this. And it was felt very meaningful to me, which I feel like a lot of schooling isn't super meaningful. And so that's one thing that I've appreciated about this area of emphasis. I'd be curious why you've stayed in it so far. Because at least for me, like I'll take a class, and I'll be excited about it, and I'll be like halfway through, I'm like, yeah, I'm not pursuing this aspect of it. For you, this is something that you've latched onto. Why have you stayed into it versus why you've got into it?
Great question. I think I'm just fascinated by humanity and relationships, and I love talking to my friends about relationships. I love everything that has to do with like how we function as humans, just learning about when our brains develop, the whole human development side of things. And then also just being a parent, I think is uh, for me, and being in a relationship where like I have to work on my relationship,
Hmm.
having tools. And maybe it's just like a self-obsession where I'm like, what's my attachment style? And I need to figure that out. And I need to, just that type of stuff just fascinates me, draws me in. I love inner work and just I think I'm a perfectionist in every sense of the word, and just like to a fault, obviously, just like trying to perfect humanness,
Yeah.
which doesn't really work. But I don't know, I'm always drawn to becoming better and helping my kids have a better childhood, understanding myself and understanding others. I think, I don't know, that's just like my huge draw. It's like I want to understand, I want to know why. So I just love humans, I guess.
Yeah, no, I resonate with that. Where like to me, I want to leave the world a better place for my
Mm.
kids, and I know the more work I do on myself, and the more I can try and help other people see that, then that's going to be the case. Because as we'll probably get into it, society's in kind of an interesting place, and so it's like I want to be able to tell my kids I at least tried. I don't know if I'll make any difference, but I at least tried to leave the world a better place for you. But real quick before we jump into, I just wanted to, if any Utah Tech students are out there, y'all should take a class from Professor Lieber. My experience with professors has been mostly down, a few ups, but the professors that really take their job seriously, like your classes, there's a little bit more of a heavy workload, but I didn't even care because I knew that you were passionate about it and that you cared about us. And so I just really quickly wanted to commend you for that. So 5-star
Well,
recommendations.
thank you. I appreciate it. I feel like it's so tricky. It's my first time teaching, and so I was given kind of the course content from previous professors, and so it's hard to know like how much is too much work to give, and then it's like, oh, I was like, Carter hates me because I made him do group
That
projects.
was a little frustrating, but we made it work. So
Yeah, it's just like it's a tricky, yeah, I have a lot of imposter syndrome there of just like I don't know how to teach, especially like just a quick class like that where there's no interaction. It's kind of tricky, but
you
I
did
always
great.
enjoyed your work. Like I think you really cared, and it was fun to be able to push you a little bit and be like, okay, like I see your thought process, but can you take it one step further? And you like really responded to that. And I think, that's really impressive. And I commend you for it because it's kind of crazy the type of assignments that get turned in.
Yeah.
So you did a great job.
Every once in a while, I'll be reviewing peer work. I'm like, did y'all even try? Like, I don't.
I, maybe that's a conversation for another time, but I
Anyways,
was shocked.
yeah. Cool. Well, let's dive into it. I asked Professor Lieber to ponder a couple of questions to kind of get into today. The first one being, why is it important in today's day and age for young adults to be pursuing dating, like serious relationships, marriage? Like kind of what happens to a young adult's development or even just their social life or their view of themselves if this isn't part of their life, if they're not pursuing like meaningful relationships. Because I see a lot of people really struggling to even do this. And so they're just like, I'm just not going to even try. And again, I think it ebbs and flows of how much effort or emphasis you put into it, but kind of give us a broader, maybe context into why is this even important for young adults to be pursuing so that maybe we can understand why it's relevant to our conversation today.
Yeah, it's kind of a broad question. And I was looking at some of the research, and obviously, um, there's not a whole lot of like recent research on how how does marriage affect people because it's been done so many times. But overall, research shows that people who are in good, committed relationships are healthier, have better self-esteem. They overall are just better than the single population. They're better off. They're um, wealthier. They're healthier. They report like greater life satisfaction. All these things that just like almost put marriage on this pedestal of like, if you are married, you will be happy.
Hmm.
And there's a lot of research too. I don't know if you've heard of the, what's it called? It's by Professor Willoughby. He was one of my professors in at BYU. I think it's called The Marriage Paradox, his book.
I've
Yeah, The
not
Marriage
heard of it, but
Paradox.
the his last name sounds familiar.
It talks about why emerging adults love marriage yet push it aside. And he has a whole book. I think you'd enjoy it, honestly, on young adults today are very interested in marriage. Like most people will say, yes, I want to get married. However, the paradox is marriage rates are declining, right?
Mhm.
No one actually is getting married or not as much as they used to. So it's a great read. I think you'd really like it. But just how we've put marriage, serious relationships as this like, if you are married, then you will be happier, and that's what research shows. My kind of critical thinking side brain always goes to, well, is it marriage that makes people happier, or are happier people more likely to get married?
Mm.
Are healthier people in a better spot to be in a serious relationship than those that are chronically ill, or different things like that? So I think it's important to have that caveat as we talk about research and say, you know, marriage, it's very important, and it's a stable foundation for children to be raised in. It's better all around. People are just happier when they're married. But then it's just like, why, can we take a moment? Can we take a step back and just think about, is that really what's making them happier or not?
So having that person, so again, if you're just talking to me, like
Mhm.
what benefits or I mean, sorry, what maybe negative aspects could start to come into my life if I just take that off the table. If I say I'm sick of it, I'm done pursuing this, I don't maybe need friends, I don't maybe need, to be pursuing dating, I'm just done with it. What would be some of your cautions to that, either in my development or just in my life as a whole? Why would it be maybe a poor decision to take that route?
So one of the stages of development. So Eric Erickson has multiple stages of development. They start in infancy, and it's like trust versus mistrust, all these different stages. And from the ages of like 19 to 30-ish is the intimacy versus isolation stage of life that young adults are in. And
You could just put that above every YSA ward chapel and say
I
this
know, I'm
is the
just like,
stage everybody is in.
everyone's in this stage. And I think it's important to see, maybe we're not just talking about romantic relationship, but just friendships, just social interaction, which is, it's really different nowadays than it used to be even 10 years ago. But isolation is, it's a marker for depression. It's, mental health issues come up when we're isolated. Also, just general well-being, health issues, all these things of being alone. People who are alone just tend to live shorter lifespans. Like we are social creatures. We're not meant to be all alone. But I hesitate to be like,
Mhm.
and so marriage is the only option.
Right.
It's just like we need to have a village, we need to have groups and friendships and meaningful relationships, I think.
Well, and that's kind of why I wanted to call it the relationship comeback, because I think there's relationships we need outside of just a romantic one, like whether like it's a parental relationship, whether it's a relationship with friends, whether it's a relationship with yourself. Like to me, I see a repair needed in a lot of relationships in our society. And so like I like what you're saying, like we need these relationships in our lives when they're not happening. Like you're saying, it's a marker for depression, it's a marker for leading to isolation. I just see so many kids, falling into that of like it's hard to develop relationships. It's not easy. You have to maintain them, and so sometimes it's easier to just isolate. And I think that that's causing a lot of damage in our young adult population because they're just stuck in that isolation stage versus trying to find intimacy in their relationship. So I think kind of diving into another question is, all right, well, what is making this so difficult? Like what from your professional family studies and human development background, what's going on? Like why is this not clicking? Because again, like my parents make it sound like 50 years ago, they could just go outside and walk down the street and find somebody to go on a date, or they would meet someone at the movie theater and they'd be best friends for life. And I'm just like, I just
Right.
feel like we're living in completely different worlds when we're talking about this. I feel like we're just talking past each other. So what's going on now, or what's changed that's made this maybe a little bit more difficult now to form any type of relationships, friendships, or romantic ones?
Well, I think first off, like validating what you're feeling because that's very true. The world has changed so drastically over the last 50 years. I was thinking about this question a lot, and I think there's so many pieces of why it's so different now. Um, One that I've been thinking about a lot lately is from like a feminist theory perspective. If we look, um, women were not allowed to have a credit card on their own without a man to co-sign on it until 1974. And so in my brain, I look at that and I think, okay, my mom was actually the first generation to be able to have a credit card
Mhm.
before like her mother couldn't do that. And so, and your parents are probably much younger than mine, but it's just like my generation and then now yours. This is a really new generation of we and now men know how to cook. Or if they don't, they can DoorDash something to their house in 45 minutes.
Mhm.
And um, men are able to have bread without a woman in their home. So there's these like, I think sometimes feminist theory gets this like, oh, okay, like we're going to talk about, just this like kind of really intense, but it's this idea that the landscape for men and women has completely changed.
Mhm.
And I think that's created this we don't need each other anymore. We want each other now. And if you think about that, like when I need a drink of water, I don't really care what kind of water I'm drinking. If I'm just on a hike and I forgot my water bottle and someone just offers me something, I'm not saying, is this Dasani or Aquafina? Right? I'm just drinking the water and it's exactly what I need. But when I'm at the gas station going on a road trip and I want to get some water, I'm thinking, okay, do I want sparkling? Do I want Fiji? Do I want, I just sit there and I decide and what do I want, right? And now it's not just a gas station level of water, it's Amazon.com. Like literally, there are so many options. You're on Tinder, it can be the whole world,
Yeah.
right? Your options are limitless and it's a want, not a need. So it creates this like very different landscape to dating. I don't know if that makes sense or what
Yeah.
you think of my ideas, but
No, I just like you're saying, like, anytime I haven't been on the apps in probably like 6 months. I find them to be mentally exhausting and not I don't think it's very healthy to be on
okay.
them for long periods of time. But I like you're saying, like I get on those apps and I'm like, man, I'm really popular in the Philippines. Like I've got 25 girls a day swiping up on me in the Philippines. And again, like I'm obviously not taking that
I
too
know.
seriously. I'm not going to pursue a relationship. But like you're saying, like you have these options worldwide. Like I have friends from my mission who have married people from different countries that they met on these dating apps. And so
Mhm.
again, I don't know if that's a realistic option for many people, but like you're saying, it is still an option where all of a sudden you have these apps where I can go on and I can swipe for 30 minutes and interact with people I might not ever meet in my day-to-day
Mhm.
life. And so in the back of your mind, you're like, I always just have these options. I would be curious your thoughts on how dating apps is impacting the difficulty, or is it something that's good? What are your thoughts on dating apps and how that's affecting the difficulty of forming real relationships?
I think it's tricky because it's kind of like you have to play the game now. Like,
Mhm.
I was thinking a lot about this semester where a lot of students were submitting chat GPT work. And I was like, okay, what? You know, but it's everyone's playing the game and now there's new tools that are added into it. And so we have to adapt. And instead of demonizing the tools, we have to adapt to them. And so I think the dating apps, it's almost like a necessary evil at this point. And it's hard, but I think it's easier to stand out too if you say, like, hey, I really don't like these apps. It's a great way to meet someone really quick, but can I have your phone number? And if it's a no, then that person really likes dating apps. That's probably not a fit in
That's
general, right?
that's a red flag if you like
Yeah, like
these.
if it's just if you like the dating apps, then that's great. Like continue on your journey
Mhm.
and you're in a different stage, right, than that person. But I think at the same time, um, the other apps that we have to think about are like TikTok and Instagram and not so much Facebook, but it just we have this access to everyone's lives where now it's like, oh, he doesn't open the door for you. You don't deserve that. Like
Mhm.
my man opens the door for me every time we walk anywhere. And so it creates this comparison to like the whole world of we don't take into account cultures. We don't, it's just like a 3-second clip of if your man doesn't know what you want from McDonald's, then he actually doesn't love you. And that's a TikTok, right? And you'll have tons and tons of comments that are just like, yeah, I left my husband for, it's just like
Right.
this weird access that we have to other people and their lives, and we compare. That's not healthy to have so many options displayed when it's not a want, it's not a need, it's a want now, right? I
Yeah.
don't know.
I would be curious just in that realm of social media, dating apps, like what from your background, how do you use that as a necessary evil? Like are there things that you're just like, I just don't think we need to be doing this as a society. I don't think we need to be posting about get ready with me's, or maybe you're like you're using it like what is your thoughts on using that kind of in a healthy way to allow yourself to be in a position to maintain healthy relationships instead of every time you see one of those videos of, if your man's not doing this or he doesn't know this, then it's kind of like, oh, well, maybe my boyfriend's not a good boyfriend or whatever it might be. How do we balance that?
That's a great question. And I mean, research shows that social media is bad, right? It's we can try to say like, oh, it's just necessary, but it's just bad for us. It's not good. So I think if we can put it down as much as possible, I like to use it. I live, I'm from Canada and my family's not around, so I like to use it to update them on my kids. And I have a private Instagram, just like be super aware of how much you're using it, who you're following. But it's really tricky. It's really hard. I feel like I don't know sometimes like you just dissociate and then you're like, I've been on my phone for 30 minutes
Right.
just in this echo chamber of my own thoughts being regurgitated and fed to me over and over again. Like, this is not healthy. So just like putting the phone down, doing something else. I think we, as a society, we really need to go back to a lot less. Maybe I should get a flip phone or
Yeah.
something.
How do you think that impacts someone's development of sitting for 30 minutes, 40 minutes, or an hour or 2 hours a day of basically being in an echo chamber? Like I watch one person's TikTok and all of a sudden their whole page shows up because the algorithm's like, oh, he enjoys this. So you're basically
Yeah.
just you're not listening to opinions you don't agree with. You're not like it's just constant almost affirmations of what you enjoy. What do you think that does to somebody's, development, just either mentally, physically, socially? Like, what do you think that does to somebody?
I think we see it so prevalently right now. It's so hard to have discourse with people who disagree. Like,
Mhm.
it's so hard to find people that you're able to have just like a, oh, tell me your point of view, and if I disagree, and then we just have like this, oh, let's learn from each other. Instead, it's like, well, me and 50 million other people are right. And at the same time, it's like a whole other thing on the other side. It's creating this like deep divide of whatever it is to always feel so supported in our divides. I don't like it.
Mm.
And I think too that, you were asking what does that do to development? When we look at screen time use in children and we say like, oh, kids should only have maybe an hour of screen time a day. And yes, it has negative impacts on brain development. It can impact cognitive function, all these different things. And also, the issue is that it's taking time away from learning to use scissors,
Mm.
from learning to play fair. So it's not just what it does, it's also what it takes away from. And I think it's the same thing with if you're just sitting on your phone for 30 minutes, it takes away from your ability to just sit in your body and breathe and be or journal or have a meaningful conversation and a connection with someone else, right? So I think it's kind of both.
Well, it's all like just as you're talking, I'm realizing like, all right, if a kid is, if he's the quote unquote iPad kid, like for me growing up, like I was kind of getting into like I could play video games at night with my dad maybe, but it
Mm-hmm.
would there was never an iPad or anything. So like to me that's not a that's a foreign concept as a kid, but like these kids if they're not going out and playing or making a bike jump or playing in the dirt with their friend, like you're saying they're not learning just these social skills of like you're just saying even how to play fair or how to do like can you imagine learning how to do that in high school or in
Mm-hmm.
college of like I haven't really done this because I've just been playing Mario Kart all the time or I've been in all and again like different kids have different interests so it's like you can find a balance but like I'm thinking maybe that's part of the issue is we're learning to do those things later and later and so it's making it difficult to actually develop relationships because maybe you're developing skills that you probably should have developed as a young child that you're like, I've just kind of put them on the back burner until now. Am I off in that, or what would be your thoughts on that potential theory?
Yeah, totally. I think that's such a cool path to go down. I was thinking as you're saying that sometimes um, I know a lot of young adults feel like someone saying no to a date, they're rejecting the person who's asking. But I think there's a lot of just rejecting the lifestyle of being in a committed relationship and rejecting that type of construct of monogamy or whatever it is that they might not be ready for. And maybe that is just like a developmental part of themselves that hasn't been quite fulfilled yet, that they're not ready to be with someone else. And even in the same breath, it's thinking about how um, to accept and be in a relationship with someone, we have to see them as imperfect, and we have to accept their imperfections. Um, because like no one's perfect, right? We like all know that, but somehow we think that we kind of are, and so we're expecting that to be reflected in someone else. And maybe my thoughts don't making a whole lot of
Yeah.
sense, but I'm just thinking how like um to accept that someone else has imperfection means accepting that we have our own. And sometimes that's really hard to do, to just be like, ah, they have an avoidant attachment style, and that's really triggering to me. And it's like, well, if you were secure in your attachment style, you could meet them where they are and help them out. And it's maybe because you're anxious that like that triggers you and all these things that we have to accept so much of our imperfection in order to be in a relationship with someone else who's imperfect.
How do you think you start to challenge yourself on that? To be like, because again, I'm sure everybody's listening is like, okay, yeah, that's for my friend. Like they
Yeah.
probably could use that. And it's like, well, it's probably not me. Like I definitely don't have the issue. How do you think you challenge yourself in a healthy manner to be like, all right, how do I accept potentially my imperfections, but then also allowing me to accept other people's? How do you think you start to challenge yourself or to open yourself
Yeah.
up to that way of thinking?
I wonder if it's looking at it from what do I need out of a relationship? Is it a lot of space or is it a lot of reassurance? And then saying, okay, it's one or the other. And then saying, okay, maybe this isn't just this like strength that I have. It could be a weakness or it could be a problem for someone else. So what would I need in a partner to match that with me? Someone who's equally as detached, someone who's a little bit more, or just someone who's kind of like in the middle. And I feel like maybe secure attachments are a myth. I don't know if anyone
Yeah.
has a secure attachment these days. But just this idea of maybe it's not what's wrong with me, but what do I need? And what does that look like if someone were to meet my needs?
Mhm.
And then kind of analyzing, like, am I asking for too much? Is that fair? And kind of going in that direction. I don't know if that makes sense or
Well, I would
what you
just,
think.
because again, for me, I'm like, well, I deserve it all. Like I should be able to get it all. So like how do you
Right.
really figure out what you need? Is it diving into your attachment style and being very aware of that? Or is it like how do you figure out what you really need in a potential partner?
I think it's really interesting because everyone is being told you deserve it all,
Right.
right? Um, really, what do we deserve? Like, what does another human really need to give us? And what do we need to give ourselves? And I guess I don't really know the answer to your question, right? It's just like I don't know. What do you want and what do you need? Um, and what are you willing to give up? I was talking to my brother who's probably around the same age as you are, and he was saying, I've been doing so much inner work. I've been working on myself so much. I don't want to date a girl who hasn't done the same amount of inner work
Right.
and who's just gonna give me her anxieties and just all this other stuff. And I was like, oh wow, like that's really interesting to
Yeah.
hear that, you know, we just there's this sense of entitlement to a perfect partner. Um, but like reality check, like, no, you're not perfect.
Yeah.
Sorry.
You're like, I love you, but not we're not there yet.
You're so great. And I'm like, you'd be a great dad and a great partner to someone. Like, someone would be so lucky to have you. And he's like, yeah, I know. I'm like, right, right.
Yeah. Well, and again, like you said, I don't know if there is an answer. Maybe that's part of the
I think
problem
it's
with
part of
what's
the
making this
issue.
so difficult is it's like, how do you really self-evaluate what you need? Because like maybe someone that is an anxious attachment style, they're like, okay, maybe I can be open to someone with an anxious attachment style. Maybe that's just a terrible combination and that's not what they like or they're like I can get with this person that has an avoidant attachment style and it ruins their life, so it's hard to develop that, but I like just the train of thought of thinking, all right, what do I really need and what can I be okay with, and maybe almost just say I'm going to start with myself. What are my strengths that I would bring into a relationship like your brother? That would be an incredible strength to bring in your own inner work that you've done and you're in a healthier place than probably most people. That would be a huge strength. But then also being open and realizing, all right, well, what are my weaknesses that I would bring into a relationship? Do I need a lot of affirmation? Do I maybe push people away when things get hard or whatever it might be, and trying to be like, all right, what are my weaknesses? And then just being aware of those and then trying to show people grace is probably a good place.
Totally. And I think we've put a lot of marriages on pedestals of like, this is the only way. And um, there's a lot in our society that required marriage to be there. And we're now in a space where you're saying like 50 years ago, it was not the same. Like we don't really need marriage to function. It's not like we need it to be able to live. Like men didn't know how to make food. Women didn't were not allowed to have an income. Like it's really different to be navigating this sense of like, well, I don't really need someone right now. Like I'm totally fine on my own. And it's true. But then there's so much that comes from sharing your life from someone, that level of intimacy, that fulfillment that you find from being able to share life, share your deepest insecurities. Have you heard marriage is a magnifying glass to your faults? Like,
I haven't heard.
I
I mean, I've heard the term, but I don't know if it's like a theory or anything like that. But
don't know if it's a theory, but it's just this idea that like when you're with someone and you commit for the rest of your life to be together, like so much of your own faults will come to the surface, and you it's this like purifying fire to just like become a better human. And I think we benefit so much in a society where people are not as selfish, right? It's this intimacy that creates the environment where it is safe to lose that selfishness, put someone else's needs before yours. And it's not fun. Like it's not
yeah,
this just like, but it is way more fulfilling. And you have the groundwork to bring in children in like a more safe environment, um, where they can have more stability. So I don't know, I'm kind of going off, but it is just, it's not this, you should get married because it will make you happy. But you become a better human through intimate relationships. And that can be friendships that are stronger, or, with parents, with siblings, different things like that.
well, I think so much of the world's focus and even in our culture's focus is fun, happiness, exciting,
Mhm.
dopamine, and I'm just like I just have such a hard time with that because there's no way that's the purpose of life. To me, like you're saying, the
Yeah,
purpose of life is can I have a meaningful life? Meaningful does not always mean fun. Like meaningful, like I'm sure for you being a mother, I would imagine it's rarely like super duper fun where you're like, oh my gosh, this is
totally.
so fun. Let me post this on my Instagram. Like I would imagine that doesn't happen very frequently, but
Yeah.
I would imagine it's probably one of the most meaningful things someone could do is being a mother. And so, like, we just have this, like, almost skewed perception of, like, well, we're looking for fun, but I want my dating to be fun. I want my marriage to be fun. And it's like, I don't even think that's like a proper expectation at all.
Totally.
Like, maybe a
Yeah.
wedding is fun, but you wake up the next day and you're like, well, now we're in a marriage. Is this,
Yeah.
can we have fun every day? I don't, maybe you can have fun, but like I would be curious, maybe kind of shifting gears just a little bit because again I think especially in you I mean you went through the BYU thing, you kind of know and
Hmm.
understand maybe some of the pressures and difficulties there, and again you can be as open and honest as you want, but like in our specific culture of Utah and things like that, what are some of the difficulties you see in this culture in this society that are kind of maybe pushing just get married and then you can go from there, or this kind of religious pressure that's kind of also in the background of every date you go on and things like that. What are some of the things that you see making it difficult? Kind of, we've been talking about the broader culture, but now kind of getting a little bit more specific to where we're at. What are some of the difficulties or hurdles you see kids facing? They're like, I think this is a bigger deal than we're making it.
Yeah, I think there's so much pressure towards marriage, especially at like a really young age, where the rest of the world would probably be like, why are you thinking about marriage? You
Right.
should be in a hostel in France right now, right? Like, there's so much pressure to do things at a really, really young to the world age. Um, and I even remember at BYU, I had this friend who just beautiful, wonderful girl, and she was 25 and unmarried, and we all felt so bad for her. Like it was the worst thing that could have happened. And now I look back and I'm like,
We act like and again, I do
what
it
the
to
heck?
myself. We act like it's like a terminal illness. Like, oh my gosh, I
We
can't believe you've
really
been dealing with
do.
this.
It's like everyone's just like my sympathies. Like, I'm so sorry. Like, hopefully someone will ask you out one day. Like, I
Right.
don't know what else to, and it's and now looking back, I'm like, whoa, I wish I had waited. I wish I had spent a little more time just figuring myself out, healing my inner child, all these other things, traveling without kids because
Yeah.
that's really hard. And even I was looking up, um, we talk about the prefrontal cortex isn't formed until the late 20s. So that's part of our human development. And when I say prefrontal cortex, I'm talking about the part of your brain, I wrote this down, the
Hmm.
part of your brain that like helps with your executive function, your social behavior, your emotional regulation, your decision making skills, your motivation, all these things that to
Basically, the
me
foundation that you build your life on.
of like who you are as a human. And to me, having that fully formed before you choose the person that you're going to say, for better or for worse, you and me, we got this.
Right.
Like maybe we should wait until that's, formed a little bit more and just be patient and analyze more like, what do I want? What makes me happy? And then when you find someone who can walk next to you on that journey and say, I really like spending time with you. This is fun. Like, not the fun that's just like cheap and we had so much fun. It's just like, this makes me better. I'm a better person when I'm around you. Then it's like, okay, let's link up. Let's have our lives be together. Like I don't want to not go to bed next to this person, right? And I
Mhm.
just want to wake up with them and do life with them and take out the trash and clean the house and do the yard work and all the other things that are just because life is life. But to have someone that just is willing to like be there with you and have very similar wants and needs and like aspirations, and we could talk about similar family backgrounds because that's kind of important. Like if your family was always very huggy, you probably need a lot of hugs. And if your family was not very huggy, you're not going to want to give a lot of hugs or
Yeah.
like different things like that, where it's more like, what works for me? What kind of relationship do I want? And experiencing different types of relationships and saying, this is not what I would normally go for, but let's see like how I feel around this type of person. Way more of like experiencing as opposed to there's so much pressure to just get married. And um it's interesting that marriage is put on this pedestal, especially within the religious culture that is in Utah, just like marriage is the end all. It's this beautiful thing. So you must get married very quickly to the first person available. And it's just like, wait a second. It's like a disconnect that I have, at least, of just like, well, should we pause that and like make sure, not a paralyzing way of just like, don't get married,
Right.
but just like make sure that you are at your core happy around that person and you feel seen and loved by them, you know?
But like just as you're talking it to me, like I love your almost like emphasis or focus that marriage will make you a better person. But I hear what you're saying. It's not going to be that process is not going to be easy. You're going to
Mm-mm.
be have your views, challenged, your self-belief challenged, your probably self-esteem, all these things like is going to be challenged because you're trying to live a life with another person that comes from different backgrounds and dynamics. And if you are not ready for that type of, it's almost like a forced inner work, like
Mm-hmm. Totally.
relationship. If you're not ready for that, it's going to be extremely difficult. I would
Mm-hmm.
be how do we
Well, I
figure that
even look
out?
at my friend now who was 25 and we were just so heartbroken for
Mhm.
her, the poor dear, who now is
PTSD, thoughts and
married,
prayers.
you know, who's now, got married at 28 to this wonderful man that she like loves and was able to really choose and for herself find. And he has chosen her the same way. And I just look at their relationship and it is so different than the relationships that my friends who were like very, very, very young and just 20 minutes later they were married and it was,
Right.
really, and they have made it work as well. It's not like I just think that there's this misconception that marriage is the best, that like everyone says once they get married, and it's like, yeah, but it's really hard. Like it's so fun to be with your person and to like live in the same home and have so many things, but I think there's a lot of pressure, no one can have sex until they're married
Right.
within the Mormon religion. So there's a lot of that that's intertwined with that because that's just a normal human need in really healthy relationships. So it's just like adding that on and saying like, okay, like that must be saved for marriage, which is a beautiful thing. Um, but it's a lot of pressure that's put on young people to then like be able to fulfill so many of their biological urges that has to be through this like special gateway of marriage. I don't know if I'm making sense
Yeah,
in
well,
that
I mean, basically,
regard.
you're like you're saying it's probably more important for you to start making these decisions later on in your 20s when you're more developed. But hey, by the way, in this stages of 20 to 25 or 26, 20, you're basically going to be like a nun
Yeah, you're
in
celibate.
these times when you're like you have a ton of hormones, you're all like your brain's going crazy and you're like I want to like it's just natural to want to have
Mhm.
those type of relationships with other people. So then you're adding in that pressure
Yeah,
to
and I
that
think like
of what am I going to deal with?
it's healthy to have like a sexual relationship with someone that you love, right? And so I mean, this is probably a whole different topic that's just there's just so much more to that than just saying like because then you're married and I'm sure you've heard this. I mean, a lot of women will struggle with this. It's just like, okay, and now you're good to go and feel no shame. But it's like, whoa, 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 there was a lot of shame for a long, long time. And that's really hard to just suddenly turn that switch off and say, this is now okay and good. And you know, it's like a big, big disconnect that I think a lot of people struggle with. And it's difficult. And it makes sense that it would be.
Well, it dives into that, just intimacy, just in general. Like if you've been avoiding that in your life with any type of relationship, all of a sudden, in every sense of the way, you're in a very intimate relationship with somebody that's going to challenge a lot of beliefs about yourself and about other people. If you're not ready for that, that's going to be a very difficult challenge. And I know there are so many people that they get married, they're so excited and then that belief is challenged and that experience probably doesn't go the way that they think it's going to go and they wake up and they're just like what did I get myself into? Like I know people
Totally.
probably won't admit it, but that's probably happening so much
I
in our
think so for
culture where
sure.
it's just like holy cow, what did I get myself into? I don't know this person as well as I thought I would. I'm not ready for this. I haven't done the work needed. So I'd be curious, we can maybe start broader and then get more specific to Utah, but what do you think we start to do to fix this? Like is there or maybe not fix it, but just like refine it or shift our focus to be like, all right, how do we lessen these difficulties? How do we get ourselves in a better position to start to actually form meaningful connections with friends, family, romantic, like what as your from your perspective of family studies and things like that. How do we start to shift the pendulum back to a maybe all right, back in the 50s and 60s and 70s, probably we had some issues with society. And now we have some now. How do we kind of bring it back into taking the best of both of those type of worlds to allow us to be in a better spot?
I think there's so much power in vulnerability, and it's so hard to be vulnerable. But I would bet that the majority of your peers feel so similarly to you, right? It's not like you're this crazy guy who's got this
Right.
crazy idea. Like, I think so many people can relate, but it is so scary to put yourself out there and be like, hey, dating's kind of tough. Like, that's scary to say. And like, I applaud you for coming in and being like, hey, this has been tough. And I think vulnerability just breeds community and it creates this space to have intimacy. And I think we need to just take the relationship off the pedestal and just connect as humans. Just have real connection, have real friendships with a girl or a guy. It doesn't matter, just like a friendship, a connection. Um, because I think I mean, it's so hard for men to be vulnerable and to talk about their feelings. You ask, you know, it's the joke of like, what did you guys talk about to a guy's night? And they're like, nothing. The sports team that was on the television and the chips that we ate. Like, that's what we talk about. There's, there's no room for men to have this like vulnerable side and to talk about their emotions and to connect. It's creating isolation to an extreme degree, right? And so I think being vulnerable and being like, hey, I'm kind of having a hard day, or hey, dating's been really tough. How do you feel about dating? Just this ability, and it takes so much courage to be
Right.
vulnerable. It takes so much courage, but it opens up the conversation in a huge way.
what would you tell the girls to allow a space for guys to feel comfortable to be vulnerable? And what would you tell the guys to kind of push themselves to be vulnerable? What would be
Mm,
your advice to both?
that's a good question. So, what would I tell the girls to allow men to be
Yeah, like
vulnerable?
what could girls do to start to create an environment where maybe men feel safer to express their vulnerability? Because again, like you're saying, I think that's a huge problem. You go on dates and you're starting to connect with people. You don't want to like show them everything because you're like, I will be scared they don't want to deal with that or whatever. But like you're saying, I think that in itself is the problem because then you don't know what you're getting into. You're not being your authentic self. And I would imagine it's very difficult to maintain that for a long period of time if you can't be genuinely vulnerable or things like that. So, what could girls do to create an environment where maybe guys feel more safe to do that? And then what would be your push to guys about why they need to do that or to build the courage to do that?
Mm, that's a good question. Mm, I think it's important for all of us to show up authentically. And we are definitely in a society where, I mean, filters, fillers, the works, like all the things we're pushed to not show up authentically. But I think when you do, you attract the same type of people to your circle. And so, just like if you were to be a giant, I don't know, Lord of the Rings fan or something, um, and you would proclaim that to the whole world, it's kind of like, did you watch Love on the Spectrum?
That's my favorite show.
It's so good,
Yeah.
right? And one of the girls is just like obsessed with trains, and she's like, you should be allowed to love trains and just love trains. And why would you hide that and not be with someone else who loves trains? And I want everyone to feel so entitled to be bold in their authenticity. You are allowed to show up as you are, and you should. And you will be, as you're bold in who you are, attract the people who are also attracted to the same things. And
Hmm.
it doesn't have to be like someone created the environment for me to be comfortable. It's just showing up so comfortably in who you are that it doesn't matter where you are, you just are you.
Hmm.
And it sounds like, the cheesy, like, just be yourself, or but it takes so much courage. Like, and it's okay to struggle with it. It's okay for it to be difficult. But I think it's just testing the waters out too and just being like, hey, can I be honest with you? Or like, hey, can we have a chat? Or just testing the waters in more of a practical standpoint. I'm just like, hey, can we talk about something I've been thinking about? Or what do you think of Tinder? Or whatever. And just kind of have more authentic conversations. I don't know if I'm answering your
Well,
question.
what you're saying, like going back to we have all of these options and we see all of the options, and I think we want to be the answer to all of the options. It's like I want every single person to swipe on me on Tinder or Hinge or Mutual, and I think that creates a lack of authenticity because guess what? You're not for everybody. And I think that
Yeah.
that's a big issue. And again, like some people probably do get that validation. Like I know there are
Mm.
or girls I've met that they'll be on these apps and within a day they got like 1,000 to 2,000 like likes. And then I would imagine that's probably not everybody's experience, but you're like, I want to have everything. I want all the options. And it gets really difficult because I would imagine your person is not going to be for other people. And you're like, I want to be able to be my best true self. And that might not resonate with everybody, but the right people it will. And so you
But I
almost
think
have
too,
to bet on
there's
yourself.
totally, and I think too, there is such a biological component about finding a partner. And just like the way someone smell, like if we think about it as like we are mammals, like we are just you shouldn't marry your cousin, like that type of stuff, biology, like for your children to come out with like biological genes that fit together.
Hopefully
Like
that's not breaking news to anybody.
Surprise. The Mormons are not
Yeah.
marrying their cousins. No, I mean, like, there's something that, like, when you have someone scent that you can smell, that, like, biologically you can choose a mate that will be biologically receptive to your genes and theirs
Mhm.
to yours to create the optimal child, right? Like, it's just biology. And we have taken that away through Tinder, right? You're or whatever apps. You're not smelling the
Right.
person that you're going out with, which is, weird to say, but it's true.
I'm just gonna go on my next date and just be like,
Just sniff them.
can I smell you real fast?
But then
That's
at the
probably
same
maybe a
time,
third date.
the food we're third day, the food we're eating is like hormone disruptors, and women being on birth control is disrupting their ability to smell like the right type of um
It's our food.
it's crazy. Like, there's so much that's going on that really affects, and I think why there's issues with infertility, of just like people are getting married and maybe their genes just don't
Hmm.
connect very well, but they were not able to have that aspect of our, like, humanness, our biology, into like selecting their mate. Um, anyway, that's like a whole thing too,
Right.
but
I'm like, I feel like we've come up with three or four
sorry.
different episodes today that we need to dive into more. Is there anything specifically you're like, I wish I could start to see this in Utah or in our specific religious community? You're like, I wish this would start to happen. If it did, it would have such positive outcomes. Is there anything specific you can see that is happening or that isn't happening that you're like, this would make a huge difference if we could figure this out?
I just see how hard it is on young people to feel like they're failing all the time. And that's just so unfair.
Hmm.
It's just so unfair to have that burden, and to like have to carry that in so many ways. And I just wish that, like, I could hug everyone and be like, listen, like, it's okay. Like, you are going through a really weird time, and expectations are the same as they used to be, but the circumstances have completely changed. And so don't be so hard on yourself. Take your time and be selfish about, be selfish in your work. Be selfish about yourself. Be selfish and create who you want to become. And also be not selfish by saying, I accept that there's imperfection in the people that I love, and willing to work with them on their issues and be open minded. You know what I mean?
Well, to
I
me,
don't know.
an application of that is again, like, if let's just say hypothetically, the prophet stood up and said that, I don't know if that would make a big difference. But I mean, it might. But my application of that is who's somebody that I know that's going through that, like you're saying, that I could go up and hug and just be like, it's all right. Like to me, that makes a real difference in the community to say, all right, do I know people going through this? Can I go up to them and hug them? Can I go up to there and be there for them? Can I go up to them and say, you're seen? Like I was listening to she's like a faith crisis therapist, and she was saying like 90% of my job is just helping people feel seen in their journey. And I think so
Totally.
many kids just don't feel seen in their
Mhm.
dating journey, and that's really hard. And so like you're
Yeah.
saying, like, what can I do
Well,
to try and help other people feel seen in that journey would create a huge impact.
and I think too, like, see yourself and
Yeah.
say, hey, like, I see me. Like, I'm here for myself. Like, this is really hard. I don't have anyone right now, but I have myself, and I can put my phone down and just be with myself, meditate, journal, whatever it is, but just like, hey, me, like, this is okay. It's sometimes it's a lot easier to try to find someone else to help, because then we don't have to help ourselves, right? And we don't have to give ourselves the grace that we are so willing to give other people. And so I like, if anyone's listening to this and feeling like, who can I talk? And also just yourself, like, hey, like,
Mhm.
it's okay. This is really tricky. This is unprecedented. We don't really know, like, how to help. And marriage is this weird thing that like there's so much pressure, like it's okay.
Yeah. Well, the
Yeah.
theme of almost every past few episodes that's come up for me is if you can't learn to be by yourself, I just find it becoming more and more difficult to believe that you could actually be in a genuine relationship with somebody else if you can't sit there with yourself and have some form of positive self-talk or some form of positive view of yourself or be able to live on your own in the sense of emotionally and stuff like that. Like I just think it's very hard to do that. But I know you got a busy day ahead. Any final thoughts or things that you want to make sure that you share or get across in this realm of dating, relationships with self, with God, with other people, anything that you're like, I want the millions of people to know this. Any final thoughts that you want to make sure you get across?
Um, it seems daunting. I think just, you know, show up with authenticity and vulnerability, and the people who can do the same will meet you there. Um, and to me, there's no point in having a relationship that's not authentic and vulnerable. And so you don't want someone who's not in
Hmm.
that same space. And also understanding there's so many stages of development that like are pushing you to be in this state of trying to find someone to be with, and accepting that and moving towards that without shame, without pressure, without guilt, just as a positive, this is what I want and this is what I need. And that's good. And I don't need to just like get there on a timeline that's not your own, you know?
Yeah, I love that. You gotta, and again, it's not just a bumper phrase, like you have to really internalize it, but you gotta be your authentic self. And I think that's a great place to start of how can I do that? If I'm at the end of this episode listening, what can I do to be my more authentic self today? Because like you're saying, that will be attractive to the people that are meant to be in your life. That will be something that they see value in. It's not going to be for everybody, and that's okay because you want to have real genuine connections, not just a bunch of maybe ones that aren't right for you. So I love that kind of closing thought. If people have questions for you, or if they are interested in maybe this field of study of family studies and human development or marriage and family, is there any way that people can contact you or reach out to you that you would feel comfortable with? If not, I can just cut this segment or anything like that. But if there is there any way people can reach out to you?
That's a good question. Probably just my Instagram. It's at Michelle. Oh, let's see. I don't even know. Sorry.
I should have warned you
So
prior to.
sorry. It's at Michelle.Lieber. I can send it to you.
Okay.
You can put it in your notes or something. That's probably the easiest way. Just send me a message or something like that. I'm happy to chat about all this type of stuff. It's like I said in the beginning, it's just fascinating to me, and I love humans.
Yeah.
We're all so weird and just trying our best.
We'll get ready for millions of follower clips. It's going to happen. But anyway, I appreciate you taking the time to come on. I know it took a little bit of time to schedule, but I found a lot of value in this. And like said in my first episode, I don't know if this ever will have millions of followers, but for me, I find a lot of value in these conversations. It's very healing for me to be able to do it. So I appreciate you, even if that's the only outcome that comes from this is that it helped me. I appreciate you being willing to do that. So thank you again for coming on.
Well, thanks for having me on.
Of course. Well, this has been episode 8 of the Relationship Comeback. Follow us on Instagram, TikTok, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. We're on it all. So give us a follow. If you know somebody that's struggling with dating, please send them this episode. We'd love to be able to connect and support one another in this crazy journey. So this has been episode 8, where we're learning to become the one so we can attract the one. We'll see y'all next time.